So interestingly, on this project, I met the team, which was really small. It was myself, producer Ben Hedin, director Sam Pollard, and editor Laura Tomaselli, and also co-producer Phil Pinto. So I met them 2 weeks before the pandemic started, and initially thought to myself, like, okay, I'll come work in the edit with these guys. We'll be seeing each other over the course of the next year, essentially. And then the pandemic struck. So it sort of became this game of, one, figuring out how to work with the team completely remotely, which I don't always do. And then two, kind of getting used to the new archival landscape that existed in the midst of a pandemic as places kind of shut down around the country. So, because of the small size of the team, we all had really close relationships and really thought creatively about how to best tell this story. It was a mix of your usual places like the networks, but also going deeper into smaller historical societies and university collections around the country. And with King, there have been so many films on him. So a huge challenge was just thinking of how to represent this figure in a new light, with footage that hadn't always been seen. And so I worked closely with Laura almost every day, going back and forth on ideas and on clips and photos. And we're really proud of the result. No, I don't think it was planned from the very beginning. A lot of research had been done into the narrative structure of the film by Ben Hedin prior to the beginning of production. And then Laura Tomaselli, the editor, just did a great job in kind of considering that narrative structure, but also letting the archive that was discovered sort of speak to the direction of the story and vice versa, so that the story was also speaking towards what archival we were hoping to find. So it was a bit of a balance, or like a symbiotic relationship between the two. And I think, we ended up going in some directions we didn't expect to because of amazing pieces of footage that were found, while at the same time not getting too in the weeds, which, as an archival producer is easy to do when you find something that you love. But I think we really held it together in a nice way, and also kind of gave flexibility or gave space to new discoveries and found ways to incorporate those. A challenge that was perhaps a bit unexpected was, so this film is MLK, FBI, and so in some ways we sort of know how we want to represent MLK, who's very much represented in archives all over the United States and internationally. But the FBI and kind of their domestic surveillance program ended up being more of a challenge because it was largely a secret. So it was not as well documented as one would have hoped. There are all these great films in the National Archives that are almost instruction manuals for how the FBI conducts its business. But we also had to be creative and find things like educational films, news specials on wiretapping and surveillance, network news outtakes from specials they did on surveillance in the 60s, and found ways to incorporate those into the film. So I had a lot of fun working with Sam and with Laura, thinking of kind of how to creatively represent that side of the story, which ended up being much more challenging than expected, especially because the National Archives were closed for almost the entirety of the film, which is kind of the first place I would look for FBI footage. So we all sort of played around with a lot of ideas, and I think managed to sort of piece together this portrait of the agency that was accurate, but that also allowed space for kind of creative usages or remixing of various bits of footage from the archive.